You didn't cheat. You didn't scream. You didn't break my things or humiliate me in public. You did something so much worse. You stayed. And while you were there, while I thought we were building something, you were dismantling me piece by piece. So quietly, I didn't notice until I was already gone. I'm going to tell you something that's going to destroy you and finally free you. Ready? You didn't lose yourself in that relationship. You were erased, and here's what you don't know yet. You were 6 years old the first time someone made you feel like your existence was an inconvenience. And you've been apologizing for taking up space ever since. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will rewrite everything you thought you knew about why you stayed so long. It wasn't the big fights that destroyed you. It wasn't betrayal, or lies, or anything you could point to and say this is abuse. It was something so much quieter. It was the slow withdrawal of attention. The way they made you feel like you were too much, and not enough at the same time. The way your needs became burdens. The way your feelings became problems they had to solve. The way their love felt like a reward you had to earn. By being less, you didn't leave because you wanted to. You left because there was nothing left of you to stay. And here's what you'll never forget. They knew what they were doing. Maybe not consciously. Maybe not with intention. But they felt you shrinking and they let it happen. They felt you bending and they kept pushing. They heard the silence where your voice used to be and they filled it with their needs, their moods, their version of who you should be. Every time you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't. Every time you swallowed your hurt to keep the peace. Every time you prioritized their comfort over your reality, they accepted it without question. Because your disappearance was more convenient than your presence. You weren't their partner. You were their emotional support system. And when you finally ran out of support to give, they looked at you like you were broken. But the real damage wasn't what they did. The real damage was what you did to yourself to survive it. You became hypervigilant to their moods, studied their face when they walked in the room, adjusted your energy based on theirs. You learned to make yourself smaller when they needed space to be entertaining. When they were bored, to be silent when they were overwhelmed. To fix yourself when they pulled away. You monitored your tone, your words, your needs. Terrified that one wrong move would confirm what you secretly feared, that you were too much, and slowly, imperceptibly, you started to believe it. You stopped sharing your day because they weren't really listening. You stopped asking for what you needed because their response made you feel guilty. You stopped crying in front of them because your pain made them uncomfortable. You didn't just lose yourself. You systematically dismantled yourself to become tolerable. Close your eyes. You're 6 years old again. Can you see it? Can you feel what it felt like to realize, my needs make people leave? Maybe it was a parent who shut down when you needed them. Maybe it was someone who made you feel guilty for having feelings. Maybe it was a caregiver who loved you more when you were easy. You learned early that love is conditional on your manageability, that safety requires invisibility, that if you could just need less, want less, feel less, you'd finally be kept. So you started performing. You became the easy one, the low-maintenance one, the one who never complained, never demanded, never took up too much space. You learned to read emotional weather and adjust accordingly. You learned to apologize for things that weren't your fault. You learned that your job was to make other people's lives easier, even if it meant your life got harder. And that's when the truth revealed itself. Not about them, about the wound you've been carrying since you were 6 years old. The wound that made you believe your needs were a burden. The one that whispered, if I ask for too much, they'll realize I'm not worth it. If I show them my pain, they'll leave. Maybe love is something I earn by requiring nothing. You didn't create that wound. They just reopened it. So here's the truth you've been avoiding. The one that's going to hurt more than anything. I've said so far, you weren't afraid they'd leave. If you asked for more, you were afraid that needing anything at all made unlovable. That's why you stayed so long. That's why you kept shrinking. That's why you convinced yourself that love meant self-erasure. Because accepting the truth would have meant facing something unbearable. You weren't the problem. The problem was that you were trying to earn love from someone who could only love you when you were less. And then, something broke. Not the relationship that had been dying for months. Something deeper. The story you'd been telling yourself since you were 6 years old. The one that said, if I just need less, they'll finally see me. That story, it finally died. The shift didn't happen when they ended it. Not when you finally left. Not when you realized they'd never change. It happened when you asked yourself a question you'd been running from since childhood. Not, why wasn't I enough? But why did I stay with someone who made me feel like my existence was an inconvenience? When you stopped trying to be less and started grieving who you were before them. When you realized the person you betrayed wasn't them, it was you. You stopped shrinking the day. You realized you didn't lose yourself. You handed yourself over, piece by piece, hoping they'd keep you. And they took every piece you gave and asked for more. Here's what you learned in the aftermath. They didn't ruin you because you were broken. They ruined you because you were malleable. You bent, you adjusted, you erased yourself to fit their needs. And they let you. Not because they were cruel, but because they were empty. You weren't their love. You were their life support. And when you finally unplugged, they didn't fight for you. They found someone else to drain. You don't miss them anymore. Not really. What you miss is the version of you that still believed you could be loved without disappearing. Because the anger dissolved the moment you realized they didn't ruin you because you weren't enough. They ruined you because you gave them permission to. And here's the hardest truth. You can't blame them for taking what you kept offering. You can't resent them for accepting your silence. You can't be angry at them for not saving you. Because saving you was never their job. It was yours. And you forgot you're rebuilding now. Not into who you were before them. Into someone you should have been all along. Someone who knows love is not self-erasure. Compatibility is not shrinking. And you will never again make yourself smaller to make someone comfortable. You are reclaiming your voice. You are honoring your needs without apologizing. You are learning that taking up space is not a flaw. You are refusing to monitor your existence to keep someone close. And if they can't love you while you're whole, you walk, not because you're bitter, not because you're damaged, because you finally know what you're worth. Because now you finally understand, being loved by someone who needs you small is not love. It's management. It's containment. It's the slow suffocation of everything real inside you. And being released by someone who couldn't hold all of you. You thought it was abandonment, but it was freedom, the kind you only recognize when you can finally breathe again. So here's the final truth. The one you will carry with you long after this letter ends. You weren't too much. You were just alive in a relationship that required you to be less. You didn't break because you were fragile. You broke because you kept folding yourself in half to fit inside someone else's comfort. They didn't ruin you because you were weak. They ruined you because you didn't know you were allowed to stay whole. You didn't know your fullness wasn't a flaw. You didn't know your depth wasn't a burden. You didn't know you didn't have to apologize for being exactly who you are. But now you do. And here's the truth beneath all the truths. You don't need someone who can tolerate you, or manage you, or endure you. You need someone who can meet you, all of you, and still choose to stay. Someone who isn't threatened by your voice. Someone who isn't intimidated by your heart. Someone who doesn't shrink when you expand. Someone who doesn't ask you to cut pieces off yourself just to make the relationship easier to hold. Love isn't supposed to make you smaller. Love is supposed to give you room. And now you know, you will never again dim yourself just to be loved by someone who only knew how to hold shadows. If this landed in your chest like it was written for you, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you're still shrinking yourself for someone right now, if you're still making yourself quieter, softer, smaller just to keep the peace, I need you to hear this again, louder and clearer than before. You weren't too much. You were just alive in a relationship that required you to be less. Stop shrinking to fit someone's limited capacity. Stop apologizing for taking up space you earned simply by existing. Stop betraying yourself to protect someone who is never protecting you. You don't need someone who can tolerate you. You need someone who can handle all of you and still choose to stay. And if they can't, let them leave. You are not meant to be held by hands that cannot carry the weight of your truth. I'll see you in the next one.